Hey, Steve Mignani here doing the Junkyard Crawl at Berniston Auto Wrecking in Berniston, Massachusetts on a kind of an unusual day. It's actually raining, the first time this entire season of 2022 that we've encountered rain. But that's okay, I'm not going to melt. So let's explore some trucks and school buses, starting with this. Now this was once a box truck, of course. It has a New York Coach and Truck Company box, but most important to me is this right here, this engine. Now the wheels on this thing are forged. They look like International Harvester. They have that sort of flush face. So this engine, yes indeed, a big old International 392. Now International engines are kind of weird. These are what they call a Heron style engine, wherein the cylinder head has a flat face. The combustion chamber is not in it, but rather in the tops of the pistons. And look at this right here. The pistons are actually, the valves are canted on these things, but look at that big hollow right there to reduce the compression ratio on this 392. The rocker arms on these things were forged steel, and there they are right there. Actually, no, these are stamped. Okay, these are stamped rocker arms on the shafts with pedestals, kind of like a Mopar 1958 through 1963 big block with these aluminum pedestals the rocker shaft stands on. Now, on this one here, we can see that yeah, this thing was put away wet, clearly. And speaking of wet, look at the valve cover on this thing. This is one of those valve covers from the International. They have that weird scallop look, but look at the rust. Unbelievable. You know, I mean, you leave stuff out in New England and this is what happens to it. Probably gonna find some mice down inside. Here's the head bolts. Some kind of good stuff we can find in here. Oh, around this side, Shane, check this out. Now, one signifier of the International was the front-mounted distributor. No, it's not a Ford. No, it's not a Mopar again. This is the International 392. But right here, we can see the thing that put this thing out of business. Okay, here's a piston. Here's a piston. There's a piston. Here's a connecting rod. Look at this thing. The thing broke the piston, and the wrist pin even broke, and the rod banged around, probably ventilated the block, and that is what put this thing out of business. That's the top of the connecting rod, the small end. Crazy stuff. Other things we can sort of see here are very unusual engine mounts. Now, most cars, the engine mounts are on each side of the block, rubber. On this thing, there's no side mounts at all. Put my hand right through here. Instead, it has a chin mount. The motor mount's right here underneath the nose of the engine on that big forged mount right there with a rubber base down there. And at the back on each side of the transmission is where the other mounts are located. So sort of like an old Ford, in fact. So a tri-mount on this thing, kind of weird. Now on a big truck like this, this engine needs to have really rugged mounts and be able to pivot, because the torque reaction in these things is pretty massive. So this must have been designed to allow the engine to rock a little bit without problems. This is a manual transmission, of course. Here's the shifter that once poked through the floor of the cab. This thing has been in the New England so long, it's not even, you can't even begin to shift this thing. It's rusted solid. Crazy stuff. And here's the handbrake right here. And hard to imagine that by pulling this back, this is a brake shoe right here. And if we look at the back of that thing, we'll see that that band contracts around the drum at the front of the drive shaft. And that is what was used to lock this truck on a hill. Yeah, even in San Francisco. Apparently it must have worked. But again, that was the parking brake. Let's take a walk to this one here. Now again, this is the truck section here at Berniston Auto Wrecking, and this is a school bus, or it was. This one's formerly a Chevrolet. You can see here that it was a 67 through 1972 style of Chevrolet bus. Engine's gone, maybe a 366 big block, probably a 350, possibly the 292 six-banger was in this thing right here, but it's long gone. On this one, we also see, well, actually a difference. Motor mounts on this one were to the sides of the block instead of on the chin like on the International. So again, different manufacturer, different technique. Let's take a moment, go inside this thing and do the school bus treasure hunt. Inside of school buses, at most junkyards, the owners use these to store things away from the elements, so you never know what you're going to find. Now this school bus, of course, this is the back end of that 1967 through 72 Chevy, built by Thomas, right here, High Point, North Carolina originally, but inside, what treasures await? Let's find out. Okay, all right, kind of cool. Toyota SR5 tailgate right here. Of course, the SR5 was initially a 5-speed manual. That was the reference to the 5-speed overdrive. Here's probably the rear axle housing to it right here. Again, Toyota and Datsun rear axles are of the Hotchkiss type with the dropout center section. Looks kind of like a Ford 9-inch, but it's not. But again, that sort of trapezoid shape right there gives a lot of beam strength for the tubes. Kind of cool. What else do we see in here? Yeah, the hubcap game. 1961 Chevy Biscayne hubcap right there. Kind of cool, very austere. 409 car, 348 car, needs that puppy. Dig around in here. Some speedometer stuff. I'm going to say this is probably Chevy truck. 85 mile an hour speedometer, definitely from the crappy era of 1979 through about 1988, 89, when the 55 mile per hour speed limit was kind of in effect. Let's see, more stuff here. Massive brake drum. Look at this thing. Oh my God. This is the rear drum, probably off this bus or one like it. And again, look how massive this cast iron brake drum is with the full floating axle shaft. Been removed, but again, this brake drum, you know, I work on cars a lot, and I'm always glad that I don't have the truck gene, because lifting a brake drum, oh, like this, is not like lifting a car brake drum. I can only imagine what lifting like a diesel engine cylinder head off the block is like. You know, all those guys use chain falls and stuff like that. More cool stuff. Hubcap from a Cadillac right here, kind of cool. Probably 1963 or 4 Coupe de Ville. The hubcap game in the school bus. Keep looking here and see what else is here. Okay, this one's a little bit on the lean side, but we can still make hay. I do like how school buses had this sort of sky blue, almost green aqua paint. I was a kid, I rode in a Thomas school bus when I was a little kid going to school, and this was very restful, I guess, as they say it. Kind of, probably psychologists say they'll keep the kids calm, this greenish paint right here, but again, on everything in here. And we see the windows on this too are of the pre-safety type, wherein you can barely get out of these things. The idea, I think, when they designed these things was that, you know, some kids are mischievous. They want to try and throw things out the window, or maybe even jump out the window. So these windows are meant to keep kids in and maybe not allow them to throw big things out of the window, you know, on the way to school. Kids can be kind of like that. I was. But these are also kind of a problem if there's an emergency or a mishap. A lot of school buses now have doors on the side that kids can, and roof openings. Not here. So we know this bus was built before 1977, when federal standards for school bus safety really kicked in hard. But continue to look here. We see the driver's position up here, left front. There's no cage in this one like there are now. But again, there it is right there. I love this stainless arm rests right there for kids to jump in. You got to wonder how many thousands of kids came in and out of this bus from 1st grade to 6th grade on their way toward higher education. I know I rode the bus every single day. Ours was a Ford and had really rich exhaust gas. You could smell the exhaust just driving down the road. It would come in through the back, the cam effect, if you will. The gas would actually come through the back window. Maybe that's why I can't add. I'm not sure. This is kind of cool. Looks like a new old stock door for, I think, probably a Toyota pickup truck, I'm guessing. This is not, I don't think, this is probably a dealer item right here. Kind of cool. Surface rust, but it does not seem to have been on a vehicle ever. I'm going to guess this is probably a Toyota pickup truck door. I think that's what it is, yeah. Kind of cool. So that's new old stock. This thing right here on eBay, rust-free, a couple $100. So again, treasure awaits in school buses. So we'll be doing more school bus treasure hunt as the rain falls outside. Come back tomorrow for more.